Testing. 1, 2, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. Thank you for joining us here at the Backlick Cinema Podcast. I'm your host, Zoe. That's Z-O or Z-O if you're outside of the U.S. And on this show, we're taking a look back at the movies of yesteryear. This episode is sponsored by the Book of Lies podcast. And this is the 64th episode. Thank you for downloading and streaming. We really appreciate it. The reason we started this show was to strengthen the bond between my son Zach and me, Zoe. We watched movies that I loved when I was growing up in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. And I'm going to tell you what Zach thought about these classic movies that we just watched just a couple hours ago. So if you like this show, then please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or spotchaser.com, or your favorite podcast app. And please follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. You can find the details in the show notes. Now, what I want to do right now is have a little fireside chat about something that happened when we started this podcast. When I started recording today. So we had a special guest on for this episode. A very special guest. He's a great guy. We were having a fun chat. We were talking about stuff. We had a great interview. We were vibing. It was good. And then I discovered, to my dismay, that thing that happened that I hope would not happen, because we're doing it on Zoom. Obviously, when you're talking over Zoom, you have to start the recording in order for the show to work. And I forgot to start the recording. So we had been talking for an hour, or maybe even over an hour, before I realized that I had not been recording the show. And that was a mess. You know, we're both limited on time, and you can't be going over and doing over stuff like that when when you got limited time. You can't do everything all over again. You lose the energy to try to recapture that. So the whole first half of this episode is basically gone. But the second half of this episode, when we talk about our favorite parts, is still there. So I want to let you know about the special guest. The special guest that we have on the show today is Finn Haverkamp, and he is from the Press A podcast. It's a brand new podcast. He just started getting into the podcasting space, stepping his toes into the water, so to speak. And Press A is about his unique take on video games. He loves video games. He especially loves older video games. And he also enjoys some of the new video games that are coming out. And right now he's doing he's doing the thing that everybody's doing right now. He's playing Elden Rings. At least he played a little bit of it. And also his brother, who is on the podcast with him, they are both video game enthusiasts, and they truly enjoy video games. So I did the interview with him, and he talked about he grew up in Tennessee. He transplanted to North Carolina. He just moved to North Carolina, and the interview was going good. Then I, as I said, forgot to press the record button. I'm going to be doing that again. So this is the second time. You're hearing it for the first time, but I'm actually doing it the second time. So I'm going to go all over the usual stuff, and then we'll basically fold into the part where we talk about our favorite parts, where you will hear his voice. So remember, when the voice just suddenly jumps out, that voice will be Finn Haverkamp from the Press A podcast. The Press A podcast is available on Google Podcasts, the Podbean app, iHeartRadio, and Player FM. And I will make these links available to you in the show notes. If you want to know more about our special guest, Finn Haverkamp, then you can find him on letterboxd.com/Griffin. That's GRYFFIN. Invisiblestudio.blogspot.com or ninthgen.com, where he has a blog that has his unique take and his passion for gaming. As usual, all of these details will be available in the show notes. After a word from the Book of Lies podcast, we will move on to the opening credits.
So, did you hear about Jen Shaw?
No, I didn't hear about Jen Shaw.
How about Erica? You hear about Erica?
I don't think so.
What about that fraud shit from the other day?
Can you be more specific?
There's so much fraud out there and so much shenanigans. You should just tune into Book of Lies podcast.
Book of Lies podcast.
Every week we talk about some fraud, some scams, and maybe even some TV shows.
Where there are scams.
Yes, of course. Scams, frauds, and all those things. So tune in every week where we'll bring you a new topic of...
Scams?
That's right. Scams.
So tune in on your favorite podcatcher to catch up on the latest liars, cheaters, thieves, and dirty, rotten scoundrels.
That's right. See you soon.
Bye!
All right, we're back. And now we're going to talk about the movie that we all just watched just recently, and that is The Spy Who Loved Me, wherein James Bond investigates the hijacking of British and Russian submarines carrying nuclear warheads with the help of a KGB agent whose lover he killed. That's from IMDb. This movie was released August 3rd, 1977 by United Artists, released by Eon Productions. It grossed over $46 million domestically and $185 million worldwide on a $14 million budget, and it had great reviews. So this movie is starring Roger Moore, Commander James Bond, and Her Majesty. Oh, I can't say Majesty. Is it Magistry? Majesty's. Her Majesty's Secret Service. You know, I've listened to the word Majesty. I'm still not saying it right. My tongue is getting in the way, but we're gonna move it on. We're moving right along. So Sir Roger Moore, put some respect on his name. Sir Roger Moore has been in The Quest. That's the movie with Jean-Claude Van Damme. Curse of the Black Panther, and The Saint TV show, and that is where he was discovered. That's where his stardom, his road to fame and fortune began, on The Saint, the TV show. This movie also stars Barbara Bach. She plays Major Anya Amasova. She was in Caveman, The Unseen, and The Humanoids. Also, Kurt Jurgens. He played Stromberg. He was in The Longest Day, The Enemy Below, and Smiley's People. Next is Richard Keel. He played Jaws. He was in Pale Rider, Tangled, the Disney animated movie, and Inspector Gadget, the live action. Up next is Carolyn Monroe. She played Naomi. She was in Maniac Slaughter High, The Golden Voyage of Sinbad. We also have Walter Kotel. He played General Gogol. He was in Puppet Master 3, Toland's Revenge, and Wings of Fame. And we have Jeffrey Keane. He was the Minister of Defense. He was in Strangers I'm In and The Rise and Fall. And we have Patrick Lee. He played M. He was in A Christmas Carol and a production of Beauty and the Beast. Up next is George Baker. He played Captain Benson. He was in I, Claudius and New Tricks. Up next is Michael Billington. He played Sergei. He was in UFO, the TV series, and a production of Antony and Cleopatra. And finally, but definitely not the least, we have Desmond Llewellyn. He played Q. He's been in every James Bond movie, starting with From Russia with Love to The World Is Not Enough, although he was not in Live and Let Die, as the character of Q was not in Live and Let Die. He did not play Q in the first James Bond movie. And the director of this film was Lewis Gilbert. He also directed Alfie, Educating Rita, and Operation Daybreak. This was written by Ian Fleming, the characters, or I should say, this film is using characters that were created by Ian Fleming. The screenplay was by Christopher Wood and Richard Mailbaum. I think I said that right. Up next is the music. The music is by Marvin Hamlish, and he did the Return of the $6 Million Man and the Bionic Woman. That I have a passion for the $6 Million Man, so that's why he had a lot more prestigious film credits than this, but I had to include the $6 Million Man. He also did the music for A Streetcar Named Desire and Sophie's Choice. And now, I have some announcements.
Pulse 901 to all stations with an announcement. The FASD training on solar awareness and occupational safety.
That's it for the opening credits. And if you're enjoying this show, remember that you can get t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, face masks, jerseys, and more at our refurbished website, backlickcinema.com/shop. Check weekly for new designs and products. I'll leave the links to the teespring.com and the tpublic.com sites where I still have designs on t-shirts and stuff, just in case there's anyone out there that still wants that. But in particular, the pint glasses are only available at teespring.com, so I'll definitely leave that out, or leave that available. Now we're going to take a short news break. All right, now we're going to talk about some of the stuff I heard on the interwebs. So, since we're talking about 007, the British betting the British betting company, Ladbrokes Coral. I apologize for my friends over in the UK for totally butchering this name. So at Ladbrokes Coral, they had been laying odds for who will be cast as the next James Bond. So we have the top 3 contenders. Number 3 is Tom Hardy, aka Venom, aka Mad Max. He has a 6 in 1 chance of getting the role. Up next is, at number 2 is Henry Cavill, aka Superman, aka The Witcher. He is at 3-1 odds. And at number 1 is the British Zimbabwean Netflix actor Regé-Jean Page with 5-2 odds. This is all according to express.co.uk. So why don't you hit me up on Twitter or Instagram. Let me know who you think deserves to play the next 007. Up next, something else I heard on the internet. Slashfilm.com reported that I Am Legend 2 is in the works. It's set to co-star Will Smith and Michael B. Jordan, and they will be 2 of the 3 producers of the film, with co-writer of the first film, Akiva Goldsman, who will be the writer of this sequel. All right, so that's one of the conversations that we missed, and we had a really good conversation, me and Finn, about this happenstance, because we both agreed that Will Smith died at the end of I Am Legend, so how will they bring him back? So obviously the possibility has been brought forward that they might use the alternate ending of the film, and that if you have the DVDs, he actually lives at the end of that movie in the alternate ending. So we'll see what happens. Up next, on one of the other things I heard on the internet, Nicolas Cage wants to play the villain Egghead in the probable sequel to Matt Reeves' The Batman. According to Variety, Cage made this clear in a statement that he made to reporters at South by Southwest. And when I asked Finn about it, he was totally unaware of Egghead. He had never seen the 1966 Batman TV show with Adam West and Burt Ward. And he was delighted to find out that Richard Price was the original actor who played Egghead. And in doing a little bit of research, I found out that Egghead was not a character that was made up by the TV show, but it was actually a comic book villain. So that was a pleasant surprise. I would like to see some of the villains from the Batman TV show be used in any future Batman movie. It would be great to see Egghead or King Tut or some of the other goofy villains played as seriously as the Riddler was played in the Batman. He also enjoyed the Batman. So another one in a plus column for the Batman. And finally, Variety reported that Amazon will soon close the $8.5 billion acquisition of MGM. MGM, the studio with the lion, that MGM. Amazon is buying it. They're just buying everything because they can. And so that's it. That's the stuff that I heard. I mean, there was some more stuff, but I don't want to take up the entire podcast reading the news. So we're gonna move along. All right, we're back once again. Thanks for joining us. And this is the part where we actually have the recording. This is after I discovered that I had not been recording, and I pressed the record button. So you will now get to hear his voice. The voices that you will hear next is Finn Haverkamp and myself, Zoe, Z to the O or Z to the O, if you're living outside of the U.S.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry because now all that great content that I contributed towards wasted.
Right. I'm so sorry about that. But that's all right.
It really doesn't matter. It's okay.
We're going to make it work. And we're back. We're back with our guest, Finn Haverkamp of the podcast Press A, where they talk about video game news from a unique perspective. So him, Finn Haverkamp, and his twin brother, they get into serious discussions about your favorite video games. What's your twin brother's name?
Fletcher.
You can watch Finn and Fletcher Haverkamp, or you can't watch them. You can listen to them on their podcast and we'll leave a link in the show notes of where you can hear them. So this is going to be a truncated episode, and we're going to jump right into our favorite parts of The Spy Who Loved Me. Now, I'm going to make an announcement you'll hear me make an announcement at the beginning of the show as to what happened. So no, I'm going to do it right now. I forgot to press record. We had all this great content and I forgot to press record. And so we don't have time to go through all that again. So we're just going to jump right into what our favorite parts of the movie, The Spy Who Loved Me. So Finn, why don't you start us off? What was one of your favorite parts of The Spy Who Loved Me?
You know what? I think it has the best villain of all of the Bond films. I have been fortunate enough to see every 007 movie. I made a point of watching all of them a couple of years ago. I'd say about half of them are worth watching and half of them aren't. And this is of the entire series, The Spy Who Loved Me is my third favorite, behind The Living Daylights and From Russia with Love. But the villain, Stromberg, so interesting. He's like a hypochondriac, but he's like, he has these dreams, these great aspirations, and he has like the willpower, but he's also really like reserved. And his acting is incredible. He's just such a great character.
Right. Is he the one that James Bond dropped into like a volcano or something, or a chimney at the beginning of one of his other later Bond films?
No, that was Blofeld's.
Okay, that's right. That was Blofeld, and he was from Spectre. I think.
Yeah, Blofeld was the head of Spectre. I don't know about the original. I can't remember the original plot structure of that. But yeah, Blofeld was in 3 Bond films, I want to say, and one of them he does drop. He drops in a chimney stack at the beginning. Right,
and the funny thing about that is that Blofeld and this particular villain, Stromberg, they seem to have a similar type of calm personality. Mm-hmm. I don't remember Blofeld that well. So is that the case, or would they be different?
It's definitely like part of the theme, like a Bond villain theme, is sort of that calm demeanor. Like the villain in oh my gosh, what's the one that takes place on the moon? Moonraker. The villain in Moonraker is the same way. The Man with the Golden Gun. Yeah, that's another one. It's On Her Majesty's Secret Service. That is, let's see, who plays. He plays Blofeld. That's the best version of Blofeld. Yeah. Right. So yeah, you're right. It's a lot of the characters.
Right. So it's funny because well, the funny thing that I remember, like one of my favorite situations or one of my favorite scenes of all the Bond films is in Dr. No, where Bond is strapped to the laser gun and it's going to split him in half, starting with his balls. And he's like, James Bond is like, "You expect me to talk?" And then the villain says, "No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die." And I thought that was actually pretty awesome. But even he had that calm and tame, demure kind of demeanor. And the other thing is that, you know, they have these huge organizations, they have huge aspirations. One of the villains wanted to, I don't know what, be the only news network, I guess. And then he wanted to control all the media.
Yeah, that was Die Another Day, I think.
Yeah. I was like, that's crazy. You want to blow up the world to have the number one media company or something. And I can't remember. Most of the other villains, I think, wanted to, I don't know, destroy the world. Well, this is the only villain that wanted to destroy the world. Like that was his whole goal, was to destroy the girl and then control the undersea world that he was building. Right. So he's building a world under the sea, and he wanted to be the king of that world. And he wanted to goad Russia and the United States into starting World War III, a nuclear holocaust, basically. And that to me seems like a very unique goal for a Bond villain, because usually they want something else. They either want to control the world, like the regular living world, or they want to control some aspect of the world. I guess they want stuff, right?
Right. Yeah, that'd be a fun conversation, kind of to go through each villain in the Bond series and talk about, like, try to find to them. Maybe we can do that in another episode if you'd be interested.
Yeah, that'd be great. Like, find out what did they want.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. So I'll go through just things I noticed that I like them because I noticed. And I think besides the quip, besides like how Roger Moore played James Bond, he was always the clean cut guy, proper, wouldn't expect to know how to fight, but then can fight. But not the best fight choreography, but it was good for American 1977 film.
Yeah.
Like it's before they started getting the Hong Kong guys over to teach them how to really do a fight scene. So one thing that's impressive is how they did the opening scene with a spy in bed with a person, and then they get a message and you expect it to be the male that's accepting the mission, but it's actually the female. So that was a nice twist. And then they mirror the scene with Bond in bed with another person. I'm like, they're just really, there's these spies, you know? And, they're just, how do you get information? You sleep with them, of course. And so at least they had that. It's like we talk about Bond being what's the word? Chauvinistic, thank you. So we talk about James Bond being chauvinistic, and but we see female spies basically have to do the same thing. They kind of talked about it in Black Widow without being explicit about it. The Black Widow movie, when they talk about all the Black Widows have to have a hysterectomy, and I suspect it's for that reason. So anyway, so, and James Bond is he has to escape on skis. At first he's just going to take a ski, and then people are shooting at him, so he has to defend himself. And that the guys that are chasing them with guns, they have no ski sticks. I've never skied before, but I'm pretty sure you need the ski sticks to steer, because they were steering without ski sticks. They were shooting James Bond. It's like, that's the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. It's like, you've never seen anybody. Maybe somebody can ski on one ski, but did not ski without sticks, and like not even one stick, right? I can see him skiing one stick and pointing like a pistol at him, but not full on, not full on just holding the gun with two hands and skiing. So that was ridiculous and it was fun. And then the other one was so when James Bond he skis off the mountain, did you notice he skis off a cliff? You notice there was a trail there already?
No, I did not notice that.
Yeah, there was. I don't know if we're meant to see that or if
Right.
you could see it in the high
Right.
definition or whatever. It's like there is a trail there. So where does that trail go? Oh my God, the trail goes off the cliff. You mean somebody went off the cliff before James Bond? It's so fun. And then he's off the cliff. He's falling down. It's like, oh man, I don't remember this. Him falling down so long. I thought that he was going to just go to another lower part of the mountain, but then I realized, oh my God, he's really falling. He's flipping in the air there. He's gonna die. He loses skis and everything. And then, and I missed the part where his skis are actually some kind of rocket launcher. That was fun.
Yeah.
So he's falling down. The parachute opens. The British Union Jack. It's like, oh my God, it's a big FU, right? It's like they already know I'm a spy anyway. It's like a big middle finger. It's like, fuck you guys, I'm out of here. Like for a spy to like totally expose themselves going down the mountain. So what's some of your other favorite parts?
Alrighty. What were some of my other favorite parts? The exotic sets, the scenery. I mean, they go to Egypt, they go to Sardinia, they go under the water. It's just tons of great locations. I just think overall it's like would you agree that it feels like a packed movie? Like it feels like a full, complete movie. There's a lot that happens. You get good dialogue scenes, good action scenes, good characters, and it feels complete. It feels like a really compact, full movie.
Yeah,
to me,
I expect James Bond movies to go to different locations. I'd be disappointed if I'm watching a movie and they're kind of in the same location without globetrotting.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you guys doing? This is 007. He's supposed to be all over the place. So you mentioned Egypt. So I'm trying to decide whether or not that scene where he meets his contact in Egypt if that's cultural appropriation or perhaps it is assimilation. I can't decide because we do know that the British had a lot of influence in Egypt when they went there, as they did in the other Middle Eastern countries. And this guy is there and he's dressed in Egyptian garb and whatnot, and all of his women are obviously not Egyptian. So I was like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about this. It was okay back in 1977, but when you look at it in the modern eye, it's like, I don't know. I'm not sure if this aged well. And then I just decided to accept it that he just basically assimilated. He's folded into the culture to one, to try to blend in, and the other because he truly appreciates the culture, the Egyptian culture.
Sure. Yeah. You can look at it optimistically or pessimistically, I feel.
Right. But and that's one of his first scenes where it's like his horn dogness takes over, right? It's like, oh, I really gotta go. And then this woman comes over and offers him, I don't know, fruit or wine or whatever. It's like, you know what, maybe I'll stay after all. Because
I don't have a world to say.
Right, because there's a woman that I haven't given the D to yet over here, and I really want to offer it to her. So and mentioning scenery, that's that whole thing. I'm pretty sure they filmed in location because all of that stuff that happened in Egypt, it all looked pretty authentic. So that the part where they're at I guess it's a production of the pyramids or whatever, where they're teaching the history of the pyramids, and they got the little light show and it's at night, and both James Bond and the Russian spy, I forgot her name already, Major
Anya, I think.
Anya, yeah. So he sees Major Anya and he's talking to that guy, and then the guy walks off, and then all of a sudden Jaws is following him. He acts just like his namesake, the actual shark from the Jaws movie. Oh, wait a minute, when did Jaws come out? I'm thinking it came out the same year, 1977, or
really? I thought it was before that.
No, yeah, it's so weird. I don't know, but
1975, very close.
Okay, yeah, so it is his namesake. So it's so funny, right? Because he's stalking him like a shark, and he's slow. He runs slow. He looks like Frankenstein.
Yeah,
and then and James Bond is trying to catch up with him, and strangely enough, can't keep up and gets there too late. And the impressive scene where Jaws bites through the chains, these chains can't stop me. I'm gonna just bite through these. So that was all very impactful to me. And then I think what really holds up is the scene where Jaws is like slowly coming down and killing somebody. Now, what's missing is I guess they want us to believe that he bites a chunk of the man's neck off and the man basically bleeds out. Is that the feeling that you get?
Yes. Yeah.
Is that what's supposed to happen? Now,
yeah, it's just tore out his, jugular.
Finn, you tell me, how much blood did you see in that particular scene?
Not a ton. Not a ton.
There was no blood. It's like they
Yeah.
should have been swimming in blood. You
Yeah.
bite somebody, especially if you take a chunk out of his neck, it should be squirting like a
Yeah.
Japanese cereal, right?
Right.
It
Or
could
like
have been
Kill
like a
Bill.
fire. Yes, a fire hose of blood coming out of his neck veins, and Jaw should have been covered in blood. He should have been leaving muddy footprints, right? James Bond should have been covered in blood. The microfiche, I think Jaws took the notes or whatever, but everything, and no blood, and some guys just came out of nowhere and they started fighting. So I don't. They should have been covered in blood because James Bond should have been splashing blood all over the place. But no, we don't get that. And in this early part of the film, he's not undercover yet. So and then there's at this point I'm asking, why is he still a spy? And then he got his first quip, one of his earliest quip is when Anya asked what happened to the doctor, whatever, Bond says he had a quick bite. And so yeah, Bond is quick with the quips. So I thought that's an impactful scene. I thought the movie was a little slow. It's like a lot slower than modern films, but they do have scenes that really stick with you. Were there any other scenes that really stuck with you?
I actually feel like it's really well paced. Probably that Egypt section, that probably does go a little bit long because they're kind of back-to-back scenes where not like a whole lot happens. But any other scenes that stuck out to me, I was trying to think through the movie. I mean, the finale on the ship with the submarines was a long finale, but it was really good. And then the set of the villain's lair, I always love a good villain's lair in a Bond film. It's great. Even like the new one has like a big villain's lair.
Right.
The fight, I was kind of realized there's actually a lot of parallels between this one and Quantum of Solace. Have you seen Quantum of Solace?
I don't think I've
second
seen
Daniel
it yet.
Craig one.
Oh yeah, I have seen it then.
Yeah.
I don't remember it. I mean, I remember watching it, but it's one of those ones that I didn't know what was going on.
Well, it's a super underrated movie, I think, both in general and as a Bond film. But there are tons of parallels. They took a lot of inspiration from this movie where where he's fighting the guy on the rooftop, like that first henchman, and he's holding his necktie and he's leaning back over the roof, and it's the only way, and he's the only thing keeping up is James Bond holding his necktie. Or rather,
Right.
the villain holding James Bond's necktie.
Right.
And he's asking him, he's interrogating him on some question, and he doesn't answer. So he just like slaps his hand away and he falls to his death.
Right.
And
that was one of my favorite parts.
It was awesome. It was like a great little scene, right? And then they copied that in Quantum of Solace. Quantum of Solace has the exact same thing.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. And especially after Bond asked the guy, it's like, where is such and such? And the guy tells him, expecting to be rescued. And the way he flippantly knocks the guy's hand off of his tie was incredible. It was awesome.
Yeah. So there's that. And then he teams up with another secret agent. That's similar. Kind of how they're in that scene with like the projector where they're talking about Egypt outside. That's similar to the concert scene in Quantum of Solace. So whoever made Quantum of Solace really liked this movie because they based a lot of little things off of it.
Right. So you've watched a lot of James Bond movies. So I need to ask you a question. Why was James Bond actually undercover? Why was he meeting with Stromberg? Like I know he's supposed to be gathering information, but there doesn't seem any purpose to the meeting itself. It's like, hi, I'm Mr. Sterling. Hi, I'm Mr. Stromberg. I'm not going to shake your hand. And then, okay, I gotta go. Nice meeting you. take the elevator on the way out.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
there doesn't seem to be a purpose, like a pretense, like, okay, I come here for like business opportunity, or I have an investment that I want to give to you because I want to support your cause. And I like the way he tested Mr. Sterling to see if he actually knew, like if he was actually what he said he was. It's like, what kind of fish is that? If you're who you say you are. And he and Mr. Sterling, James Bond, gives him the scientific name of the fish, and the spiny quill, because I was like, I knew that it was a lionfish, and I was like, well, let's see if he gets this right.
Right. Yeah.
And he does. It's like, okay, cool. It was like, you can prove that you've proven that your bondness, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think his description of the fish is a analogy or a metaphor for Stromberg himself.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Explain that.
I'm trying to remember what the exact line is. Something how he describes him as being like deceptively deadly, something like that, with his spines, how he's like, a handsome fish, but when you get too close, he gets deadly, something like that. And it was an analogy for Stromberg.
Right. Yeah. They mentioned that other fish keep away from the fish because of the fish has spines in his back, and Stromberg doesn't like to be touched, right? So I think that's nice. That's where he was aiming. Now that we've had this little discussion, I get it now, right? I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So they kind of do some small talk, and Stromberg he excuses himself, and then invites Jaws in. Is like, so is that the guy? Yeah, that's the guy. It's like James Bond's cover is immediately broken. It's like, how is this guy still a spy? Right? There are too many people that know his identity, before they even meet him. The Anya knows who he is, but then again, they know each other. She gets under his skin a little bit because she kind of mentions his marriage. It's like, all right, you have to talk about that, right?
No, not talk about that.
and then Jaws knows, but he got in a fight with Jaws, but like Jaws knows, and then I guess he must have just nodded his head, because I don't remember Jaws saying anything.
No, he doesn't talk, I don't think.
Right. And then Stromberg is like, that's James Bond, and that's Anya. I was like, oh my God, he knows already. It's like his cover's blown early in every single movie, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how this guy does it. He should be taken out of the field like already. It's like, why is he going back in the field? But I'm sure that's the question that a lot of people ask. Let's see. There was a meeting with Stromberg. Sorry. So obviously, maybe Stromberg already suspected that Mr. Sterling wasn't who he said he was. That's why he gave him the fish test. And that's why he excused him right away, because he already knew. Also, going back to Stromberg layer, you mentioned how you like the set. So how Stromberg, he figured somebody was sneaking information, because that's how the movie starts, with the Death Star plans that he had gotten away, and he's trying to figure out. So he kind of suspects the scientists that developed the plan. Well, I guess he's judging from their body posture that they didn't do it. So he decides the secretary did it and tells her to go in, but he doesn't tell her. He puts her in the elevator, and then the elevator drops her into the shark tank. Right. And he says, I knew it was you. Like, and then after the scientist leaves, I laughed out loud when they're shaking hands, the scientists shaking hand, because they both got $10 million each, and then he blew up the helicopter, and then Stromberg canceled the transfer of money after he blew up the helicopter. So what's interesting about that is that he was good to his word until they got on the helicopter.
True. He didn't actually lie to them.
Right.
Transferred 10 million to your account.
Right.
True.
He actually did it, and then he canceled the transfer. Amazing. So I'm looking at my notes here. That's why you see the top of my forehead. I'm trying to taking notes as I'm watching the movie, but without pausing. I mentioned that. All right. So did the fortress, the bad guy fortress, did it look familiar to you?
I feel like the shape sort of does, but I can't place why that would be.
It would be because you might have seen it parodied on other cartoon shows, like from Cartoon Network when you were younger. And it's not a parody.
Like C-Lab?
It could have been. I don't know. I never saw C-Lab. But it's not a parody of that shape. It's actually a parody of another cartoon that uses its shape for their villain lair. So there was a show called Super Friends, and it was basically the Justice League, who called themselves the Super Friends on the show by Hanna-Barbera, and they were always constantly in the battle with the Legion of Doom.
Right.
And the Legion of Doom had the mushroom.
That's what it is.
Yes.
That I knew it was in my memory somewhere. I never would have
Right.
placed that. Wow, that's
Right.
interesting.
And the Legion of Doom, it kind of it was called the Hall of Doom, I think. And so the Hall of Doom was actually kind of a mix of Darth Vader's helmet and this Atlantis, the villain's lair in The Spy Who Loved Me. So
right. Huh.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was one of my favorite things about this movie. So they had, I like the stunts, even though some of the stunts are a little dated. I like the stunts. I think on the part that I forgot to record, you had mentioned how you thought maybe that part where there's a part where Jaws is chasing James Bond and the car crashes through the roof of this man's house, and you thought that might be a miniature, and I thought that might have been just a crane lowering the car to the house. But at the same time, that was a fantastic stunt.
The whole car chase scene is like probably the best car chase scene in all of the Bond films.
It is. Well, I haven't. I don't know. I think probably the modern Bond films with the way
no,
they can film.
I don't think so.
You don't think
I don't
so?
think so. I think this is still the best one. Besides the fact that the car is awesome, the scenery is gorgeous.
Right.
They're like, and they're chased one thing after another. So first they're chased by the motorcycle with the rocket side.
Yeah.
And they have a very close call weaving between two trucks. Like he's not going to make that. He's dead, but he makes it.
Right.
And then it blows up, and then he goes off, and then he like hits smoke or feathers, so he goes off the road.
Right.
And then another car comes behind him. And then the way the cinematography, how they set up the shot of the car being followed by somebody perfectly matches the score, the sound, like the song.
Right.
Like the car, the rival car, the helicopter comes into view, and like great framing. And like, and the music goes dun dun, like, and the music hits in exactly.
Right.
And like dodging bullets from a helicopter. It's awesome. It's such a good scene.
Right. And it's faster than a helicopter, but it's not in a place where it can be faster. Like it's on a mountain road. The road is weaving, so it really can't do the trick of being faster. But a car like that was a Lotus. If they weren't like on a straightaway, it would totally dust that helicopter. Right. And so yeah, that was great. I like when they had they were underwater and they were fighting people underwater. That was a great scene in the car, using all of the car's gadgets. Like, this is Bond stuff right here. And Anya's pushing buttons, right? Just pushing buttons on the car. And James like, how do you know about that? She's like, oh, we got the blueprints to this car like a couple years ago. Like, all right, I'm just like you, right?
Yeah, that's good. That's a good line.
I liked how they were competing with each other, like siblings, right? As far as proving who had the most information or who could get who could get their mission done. Like Anya's mission was to get the microfiche, and she succeeded in her mission. She calls Bond to fail his mission of getting they're after the same object. And so how they were competing and how they were kind of bickering when they were going over the information in the room. That was all great. So also I noticed, so me and Zach was talking earlier about what a horn dog James Bond is. So he's like, every chance he gets. So is it sexy time now? You like sexy time? He's like,
yeah.
She's like, and he's very respectful. It's like he only asks once per time, right? So per scene. Like, so he'll ask, like when they were in the cabin of the ship or whatever, and he's like, so it's sexy time, and she was like, no, and so like and he leaves, right? So he's not trying to push himself. It's like, all right, I don't know, I'm not wanted, right? Like, but it's like he doesn't give up. It's like, they're in another place, like, okay, sexy time, you sex now? It's like, no, we're not doing. And then she's all right. So it's so weird. So James Bond kills her husband, like on his own mission. Like he's being shot at, he has to retaliate, he kills the guy. The guy turns out to be her husband. So it's like, what are you doing, lady? I was like, is you attracted? She was jealous of James Bond when the other lady came. I don't know who the other lady was. I guess it's I'm trying to look at the names here. I think that's Caroline Monroe. So when Caroline comes and she's like, she works for the villain Stromberg, and she's like supposed to take them on a boat to go to the first meeting with Stromberg or whatever. And she's like Anya's jealous the entire time, like her whole body language, facial expressions. What is wrong with you? Aren't you mourning your husband? How are you? I mean, I can understand you have to perform certain acts as a spy or whatever,
Right.
and you're probably doing that to James Bond. But her entire body language says she's totally in love with James Bond, and her husband is not long dead, right? And then she finds out that Bond is the one who kills her husband,
Right.
and at first she wants to kill him, and then she still sleeps with him at the end of the movie. So yeah,
that didn't really add up. I thought her acting then when she finds out, I thought that was really good acting, just her response.
Right.
And then she still has her professionalism, her mission. She's like, when this mission is over, I'm going to kill you.
Right. But then they save each other's life, getting away from an exploding
right.
Doom, what you call it, Legion of Doom headquarters, and then she's like falling in love with them all over again. Like, so it's like, lady, come on now. I mean, I can see you forgiving him, but not like sleeping with him again in front of your superiors, no less.
Yeah.
It's like they get there, they're kissing and whatnot on the little escape pod, and then everybody's looking and they can see them half naked about to do the deed. And then James Bond is like closing the curtain. He's like, no, I'm doing this. This is happening. Right? So yeah, it's I like, obviously does not age well, but I enjoy the corniness of this movie. It's like it's corny, but it's corny in a way that I can enjoy it. Right? It's not corny in a way where it's off-putting, I think. And especially since, like, people say it's misogynistic and that Bond is somewhat chauvinistic, but and he's at least respectful. Like he asks, he doesn't push, but he's constantly asking. He's constantly asking. He's constantly asking, and she doesn't say no outright, and he goes away, and then finally she gives in, and right. So, but it's not like he forces himself on her. So I guess that's his saving grace, I'm guessing. So any more thoughts do you have?
Nothing else comes to mind off the top of my head right now, except that I think it's a really solid movie from start to finish. We didn't talk about the finale at all. Finale is long and big, and they just they go big or go home. There are explosions everywhere. There are dozens of extras dying left and right. He disarms a nuclear warhead so he can use it to blow open a wall.
Yeah.
And
he does all of the things.
Yeah, I just thought it was a good finale. It was a well done finale.
I really enjoyed the finale. So you had two crews. You had the crew of a captured U.S. submarine, the crew of the captured Russian submarine, and so he has to go rescue. Like, first, like, their own submarine was captured. Actually, they were on the U.S. submarine. So it gets captured. They get pulled into this gigantic ship. It looks like a converted oil tanker. And then they get pulled off the ship, and he's trying to hide. James Bond is trying to hide Anya, trying to disguise her as a male. But then some guy pulls off her hat and discovers it's a female. And then fights ensue. They get captured, and Anya is taken, right, by Stromberg. It's like, this is gonna be my buddy. Just she got a pretty mouth.
Yeah, he takes her as his trophy.
Right. And James Bond, he escapes his captors, and it's really neat. It didn't really feel unrealistic, right? It felt proper because where he was at, there wasn't a lot of enemies, so that was his opportunity to try to escape. So it worked out really well. He does a smart thing, goes and frees the two captured crews, because he's on a base that's full of bad guys, so he's not going to try to fight them all by himself. One thing that struck me was like, go to the army, which is smart, but how would they know where the army was on this gigantic ship? But somehow they find it, and it's kind of an even fight. They do the thing where they shoot from their hip, And
Yeah.
I'm glad they don't
Yeah.
do that anymore. It looks so much better when they shoot guns properly, like when they shoot the guns at eye level. Because like when you shoot from the hip, it feels so phony now. But that's it was the 1970s. That's how you do things back then. So yeah, you're right. It's great. It's grenades thrown everywhere.
Right.
It's the smart. I like that the wall you talked about that they blew up. So it was actually it had gun ports. So it was where the commander was, the command center. So like when people tried to approach it, the gun ports would open up and people would get all shot up. I was like, oh man, that's brilliant, right?
Yeah, they really thought the whole thing through.
Right. And then even the part where the Bond is running in he runs into Jaws and you have to fight. Oh, he beats Jaws with a magnet, which is brilliant.
Yeah, that was good.
And then Jaws eats the shark. It's a small shark.
Oh, that was awesome. That was awesome.
That was awesome. But it like when Jaws is with the shark, it's like, man, that's a tiny shark. I can't see how that shark is threatening, even to the woman that was put into the shark pool, right? So, but anyway, he eats the shark, and then and Bond gets away, and they find there was a really neat escape pod with the most luxurious escape pod with it was a what you call it, a mattress bed with silk sheets, and they had
really
wine.
Nice. It's like, and I'll go on that for like 3 days, sure.
Right. And it's like the wine isn't secure, so when it like shoots out like a rocket, and still the wine stays in place without going all over the place. So like it's a magic escape capsule. So and then it has to land in the water. It doesn't float gently to the water. It hits the thing hard. So yeah, and still the wine and the glasses stay in place without breaking all over the place. It's amazing. And even getting like when they were the crew had escaped, but then they had to get back to the secret base. So even all that part was pretty exciting. So yeah, it was a pretty good finale. I really enjoyed that. So
good.
Yeah. All right, so we have talked about our favorite parts, and like I mentioned what Zachary's favorite parts were. So basically, the horn dogness of James Bond and the Jaws' teeth and his performance. So those are the things that Zach really enjoyed, and he enjoyed the movie overall. So it's a win. I show him these movies, find out because these are movies that I like when I was growing up. Did he like them? Yes, he did. So I feel like there was only one movie that we watched that he didn't really like, but since then it's been all.
What was the movie?
The Jewel of the Nile.
Oh, I've never seen it.
It's still a good movie, but it was way more romance than he could tolerate, and really I could tolerate. I didn't remember it being that much romance because I thought it was going to be like Indiana Jones, on the rewatch, because it's been decades since I watched this movie.
Right,
I watched it again. I was like, oh no, this is not like Indiana Jones. This is a full-on romance that's going on here. It's like way too much for that. But I really liked Kirk Douglas in that movie. He's really fun. So that'll be. We've reached the end of talking about our favorite parts. So we're just gonna roll right into the trivia section, and but first going to take a short break. And we're back. So this is the trivia section. We got the trivia from IMDb. I really should expand where I get the trivia from, but and I was going to do it for this episode. I was in such a rush because I was not ready. Life got in the way, and I'm fighting life, and we're punching each other in the face, but I think I edged it out a little bit. So I'm going to start us off on the trivia. Lots of interesting trivia on this production. So, for example, a representative of the Egyptian government was on set throughout the shoot in Cairo, and is that Giza?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Giza.
Yeah, Giza. I was going to say Gaza, but I'm thinking about the wrong place.
Yeah.
He was on Giza to make sure that the country was not portrayed in an unflattering light. For that reason, when the scaffolding collapses on Jaws and Bond quips Egyptian builders, Sir Roger Moore merely mouthed the line, dubbing it in later. When it went unnoticed by the official Egyptian minder, and ironically got a great laugh from Egyptian audiences. So that was pretty slick, you guys. That was pretty slick.
It's good. Yeah. It's good. Yeah, I like that line too.
Right. So I'm gonna read this next line because I didn't highlight it properly.
Sorry.
The closing credits say James Bond will return For Your Eyes Only in 1981. But because of the success of Star Wars from 1977 and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, also in 1977, Moonraker, the movie that came out in 1979, was chosen. So they were going to do For Your Eyes Only, but because of Star Wars and Close Encounters, like, nope, we're going to do a space-themed movie, and they did Moonraker. And I think that's actually based on one of the books that was written.
Speaking of For Your Eyes, Moonraker is an underrated Bond film. Moonraker is a good film. For Your Eyes Only is my fourth favorite Bond film. So that's number 4 for me. Definitely, it's a really good movie. Yeah.
Right. All right, you can take the next one.
All right, let's see if I can find my sheet here. Okay. In the scene where Major Amasova couldn't drive a stick, Barbara Bach actually couldn't drive a stick either. Sir Roger Moore's responses were unscripted. Wow.
I like that. That was genuine. That was genuine Roger Moore. That was not James Bond. It's like, I can't believe you can't drive a stick. That's pretty. And I was looking at it, I was like, how is there somebody in the 1970s that doesn't know how to drive a stick shift?
That's a good point, actually. That's a good point.
So yeah, that's kind of funny. So by the time this movie was, my mom probably wouldn't know how to drive a stick. So what am I saying? I think very few people in my family probably knew how to drive a stick. So what am I saying? Anyways, by the time this movie was made, the James Bond film franchise was the most lucrative in the world, and many manufacturers wanted their products featured. There was great competition for the company that would supply Bond's car. Don McLaurin, public relations manager of Lotus, realized that the best way to win this coveted position was to make the producers chase after him rather than going to them begging them. One day he turned up at Pinewood driving a brand new unreleased Lotus Spirit with all the identifying names covered up. He parked it outside the Bond set, knowing that the producers would see it and when they take a break for lunch. Once the car had attracted a crowd, all clamoring to know what the car was, McLaughlin, how do you say that? McLaughlin, maybe? Yeah, we'll do that. McLaughlin. No, I said it the first time and then I got confused. What am I saying? McLaughlin, my apologies for all the people who are fans of very expensive Lotus sports cars. McLaughlin nonchalantly got into the car and drove away without answering any questions. He had expected the producers were desperate to discover what the car was, and producer Albert R. Broccoli later chose it for this movie. So that's an interesting tactic. He didn't go chasing after them. He made them, and it was unreleased too. So, and that was pretty smart. So here's a side note. So Albert R. Broccoli is one of the producers of this film, and I thought that was funny because if you're a Star Trek fan, that would strike you as weird, as like funny as hell. So you're not a fan of Star Trek: The Next Generation, are you?
I'm no, I haven't seen much of it. No, not particularly.
Okay, well, I'm going to go on a tangent real quick. So it's funny because in Star Trek: The Next Generation, there was a character called Reginald Barclay. He was Lieutenant Reginald Barclay, and he was played by Dwight Schultz. So he was kind of an inept officer that didn't really fit in, or did not seem to fit in with the rest of the crew. He was late for work. He was always daydreaming, that type of person. And the Enterprise is the flagship. It's like the best of the best who perform in Starfleet serve on the Enterprise. So how did this clumsy and nervous and stuttering clown get on this starship? And so people would kind of tease him. They would call him Broccoli instead of Barclay. And it would go around so much that nobody actually knew what his real name was. So Captain Picard like when he saw this going on, he says like, from now on, nobody calls him Broccoli. You will address him as Barkley. But then when he met Barkley for the first time, it slipped out of his mouth. And it was
Wow.
embarrassing for the captain of the ship to do the thing that he told other people not to do.
Yeah.
So I see this guy's name is Albert R. Broccoli. I'm like, oh my God, I'm having a Star Trek moment right now. So anyway, sorry about that.
No, that's funny. That's hilarious. All right, moving on to the next one then. The stunt driver was having problems making the Lotus Esprit look sufficiently exciting in the chase scenes because it held the road too well and had to be driven dangerously fast to make it slide impressively on corners. One scene in Sardinia required the car to drive up a hill and a mountain pass and around a sharp bend. The normal stunt driver was not available, and the crew who were waiting at the top asked Lotus employee Roger Becker to drive the car up. He thrashed the car, skidding dramatically around the corners and making a dramatic 180-degree turn on a gravel area as he stopped at the top. Would you mind doing that again? They asked him, and this time we'll have the cameras rolling. From that time on, Roger became the stunt driver for shots involving the Lotus.
Right. And so all that you talked about earlier, him the car dodging between the two trucks and doing all of the things, it was that guy, and he made Lotus look good, right?
Totally.
He made people want to buy Lotus. That was just fantastic. So up next, the famous Union Jack parachute ski jump stunt during the pre-title sequence was originally suggested by George Lazenby to be used on Her Majesty's I'm tripping over the simple word, on Her Majesty's Secret Service from 1969. But the necessary equipment to film it was not available then. The Bond producers thought it was a great idea and later added the Union Jack to the parachute to be used in this movie. It has been noted that at the scene's climax, James Bond's status with the people of Britain changed from being simply a popular character who happened to be a British and the iconic British hero on par with King Arthur, Robin Hood, and Sherlock Holmes. I read that completely wrong, but you get the idea. He went from being a regular British schmo to an iconic British character.
Yeah, and he totally is, and that's a good like pivot.
Right.
All right, so Rick Sylvester's opening ski stunt was shot from the top of Asgard Peak on Baffin Island in Canada. The summit was only accessible by helicopter. A small crew, including Sylvester and second unit director John Glenn, traveled there in July 1976, a month before principal photography began. They stayed in the neighboring village of Painterton for 10 days, awaiting the right weather and conditions. Numerous cameras were positioned around the site to capture the moment. All the camera operators felt that they lost sight of the skier as he went sailing off the cliff, all except one camera, which stayed with him throughout the stunt. The scene was all uncut. Sylvester's pay was $30,000. Sylvester was supposedly given an additional bonus when he successfully completed the shot.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a long shot that holds on that fall, and it's good. It's nice to have like one uncut shot hold for that long.
Right, and you would expect it to be shot from different angles, and they tried to do it, but they couldn't. It was only that one camera that was able to do it.
It worked out in their favor because it's probably better for it.
I think so. I'd like that long shot. It was like, it kind of was like, oh my God, he's still falling. It's like, that's the feeling that you got when you watch that scene. It's like he's falling. Okay, he's still falling. Okay, wait a minute, he's not dead yet, right? It kind of made him excited. It's like, oh my God, his skis are gone, right? It's incredible. So prior to the introduction of Naomi, Caroline Monroe accidentally sat on a bee and was stung hard on the behind. Despite the resulting pain, she pushed on the filmmakers to complete the scene. When shown boating in the greeting Sir Roger Moore and Barbara Bach, the stern look on her face wasn't due only to the character of the henchman the henchwoman that she was playing, but the pain from the sting that she was feeling. So all that seriousness, that apparently that wasn't acting.
All right, the next one, the metal teeth worn by Jaws are on display at the Spy Museum in Washington, D.C. I did not know that.
Oh my God, I've got to go to the Spy Museum at Washington, D.C. I've been putting it off because it's one of the few museums in DC that actually costs money.
Yeah, that charges.
I,
Yeah, it's not one
I,
of them all.
right. I'm spoiled, right? I'm totally spoiled.
Yeah.
Because I always go to the free museums like, oh my God, this museum costs $20. And I have to go because like I always wanted to go to the museum, but and that's also $20 a person. But I totally missed that. And now the museum's closed. I was like, man, I can't let that happen again. And they got a Madame Tussauds here. So I gotta go to these places. They're in my neighborhood. I gotta do it.
Yeah.
So up next, Richard Kai, who played Jaws, could only keep the metal teeth in his mouth for about half a minute at a time due to the excessive pain and discomfort. He often had to show comic expressions, which was quite contradictory to the way he was feeling wearing the extremely uncomfortable braces. Keel, 7'2", played an almost identical part in Silver Streak from 1976. The chain through which Jaws bites was made of licorice. In order to simulate the character's metal teeth, Kyle's stunt double, Martin Grace, used pieces of orange peel wrapped in aluminum foil. So I think Martin Grace was like, I ain't putting that thing in my mouth. You crazy?
Yeah.
I'm just going to pretend there are teeth in my mouth. They're not going to see my face anyway. They're just going to see like the reflection of the teeth, right. The gleam.
Smart.
That's all they need to see. They're not doing any close-ups of me. I'm the stunt double. You deal with that. I hope in the sequel that they gave him more comfortable teeth.
All right. So the original script called for Jaws to perish after Bond used an industrial magnet aboard the supertanker to drop him into the tanker's furnace. The scene was storyboarded using Richard Keel and Sir Roger Moore's models and apparently rehearsed, but ultimately scrapped because producer Albert R. Broccoli suspected Jaws' character had enormous appeal. So an alternate ending with Jaws surviving was filmed, allowing to Jaws' return in Moonraker. When this movie was previewed, audiences cheered when they saw Jaws swimming away in the finale.
I didn't suspect that. Like, I guess because I already know that Jaws is in multiple films, like I'm not cheering at the end of this movie seeing it again. I didn't know that people were cheering the fact that he's survived. So that's actually surprising.
Yeah.
And he's actually a pretty iconic character because you see him kind of parody in other media.
Mm-hmm.
So this movie introduced the world to a spy sea scooter known as wet bike, better known as a jet ski, sparking a new water activity industry. This gadget was commonly referred to as the motorbike that rides on water. So what's interesting about that, apparently this is the first time anybody's ever seen a jet ski.
Wow, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that. Right. So this introduced the concept of the jet ski to the wider world. I mean, they were probably around, but people just didn't know about them.
Sure.
But now everybody knows about them. Now everybody wants one. So that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. All right. The first Bond movie to make significant references to Bond's past, including his retirement to the British Secret Service and the Royal Navy, his many lady friends, and his marriage to Tracy on Her Majesty's Secret Service. Yeah. Yeah. So this is the first Bond movie to like have a meta narrative, to acknowledge that there have been other past events in Bond's life.
Right. So yeah, that's pretty. I didn't realize that. Like, it's funny, right? Because I don't remember them ever talking about his prior marriage in other movies. And I think this is the first movie where I saw that happen. So I was surprised by that. So Carl Stromberg, who played Kurt Jürgens, had webbed hands. However, they often go unnoticed by viewers on video and DVD compared to when the movie was released in cinemas. A bigger image on the theater screen makes them more noticeable. In one of the later scenes, you can clearly see on the side view of his right hand. I didn't realize that. Did you know that?
No, I didn't see it.
Oh wow! I wish that I had written this up before, after I saw the movie, so I didn't look for it. Right, I would have looked for it if I'd have known about it, but no, I never saw that, and they didn't make it obvious. It was very subtle, so that was pretty cool.
All right, the title song "Nobody Does It Better" was sung by Carly Simon, with music by Marvin Hamlish and lyrics by Carol Bayer Sager. It is the second Bond theme song to be titled differently from the name of the movie that is played on the main titles, although the phrase "The Spy Who Loved Me" is included in the lyrics. The first differently named theme is "All the Time in the World" from the movie On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Nice. So the character of Major Boothroyd is addressed as such by Barbara Bach for one of the rare times in the film franchise. Boothroyd, played by Desmond Llewellyn, is ahead of Q Branch, but the name Q stuck to the character.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. I don't think I knew that, or I never really noticed that his name, but he responded to it. I'm like, how does this like spy woman? I guess, I mean, it's her job. So she knows she's knows the name of the head of the Q branch of British Secret Service.
Right. So she knows, apparently she knows M name. She knows I guess Moneypenny, I guess she knows. I think another character is called C. I guess she knows that. So yeah, the Russian, I guess Russia's KGB is very thorough. Right. I think Boothroyd is also mentioned by, I think before the character is called Q, and Dr. No is referred to as Major Boothroyd. He's not
really okay. All right, I'll have to look out for that next time I watch it.
Right, and it's not Desmond Llewellyn that's playing him. It's a different actor. So it is. I think he's in the most Bond film of any actor at this point. So obviously the actor that plays James Bond, they never last long because James Bond is a very active character, and the actor can only play them for so many movies, and then they get burned out and they got to get a new younger actor to continue the franchise. So that's it for what we have in our IMDb trivia segment. So we are going to take a slight break, and we're gonna find out what the critics think. All right, so now we're going to roll in to see what the critics thought of this movie. On IMDb, the critics gave it 81%. The audience gave it a score of 76%. Oh, I'm sorry, not IMDb. That's Rotten Tomatoes because they do percentage. IMDb does the point system from 1 to 10. So on IMDb, they get 7.1 out of 10. I've noticed a lot of times that the IMDb scores matches the Rotten Tomatoes audience scores. So yeah, people generally liked it, and the critics really liked it. So why don't you tell us what the first couple of critics thought?
Yeah, well, I want to mention real quick also for Letterboxd, which is kind of my site of choice. The average score from Letterboxd users is 3.4
out of
5.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So in other words, 6.8 out of 10.
Wow.
3.4. Yeah, 6.8 out of 10, which to me is low actually, because I gave it a 4. I gave it an 8 out of 10. Although normally I feel like IMDb's when I am looking at IMDb, I notice the IMDb review score, it's always higher. It's always way higher than I give most movies. I actually pretty much never agree with IMDb.
Yeah, it feels to me it feels a lot. Well, I only compare Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb is it tends to be lower than Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's kind of in agreement. And on it seems on Letterboxd, it's a lot lower. It's like an average movie.
yeah. Letterboxd kind of has wider, basically that's film snobs.
I think another way to look at it is that Letterboxd is a much newer format. So a lot of the people who are scoring movies on Letterboxd, like they didn't grow up with these older movies. Right. So the ones that don't age particularly well, such as are probably going to score lower.
Right. Although I feel like this movie would have aged better if it were, or would be better received if it were Sean Connery and not Roger Moore, because a lot of people just don't like Roger Moore's portrayal of Bond.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I mean, it's not for everybody. He does a good job for what he's trying to achieve. But if it were like the more serious Connery, I feel like it would stand the test of time better, and it would be better regarded to this day.
Yeah.
All right. First critic opinion is Gary Arnold from the Washington Post. He says, "The Spy Who Loved Me gets off to a promising start, but proves seriously deficient in staying power," which I totally disagree with.
So you can probably guess that is a rotten score.
Yeah. All right. So then the next one is David Starrett from the Christian Science Monitor. He says, The Spy Who Loved Me, the latest in the series, gets as silly as some of its inferior predecessors, yet it features an adversary as memorable as Eddie sends Goldfinger and Dr. No, a magnate named Stromberg, which I agree with.
Right. Yeah, he's cool, calm, collective, and as you mentioned earlier, apparently a hypochondriac. So I think that's like his one like standout feature, because they all kind of have a similar calm,
Right.
calculating personality, charismatic, that can gather a legion of men to help him conquer the world or blow up the world or whatever they want to do. So yeah, he's pretty cool. I think I like him because of how kind of twisted he is. Like, it's like when he killed the guys in the helicopter, it's not like he couldn't pay them the $10 million a piece.
Right.
It's like he just did it for, because he could, right? He thought it was funny. So that's why he did it. So I think I like that messed up part about him. So moving right along, PJ Navarro from Patrick Navarro, I guess that's his own website or whatever. He wrote, it really has it has hideously dated. That's what I was trying to say. It has really hideously dated, from the gaudy fashion to special effects to the smutty, sexist, carry-on style humor. So it's, I don't know. I don't want to say that. I don't think he's referring to him kind of like James Bond hitting on women. Like I don't think hitting on women is particularly sexist, but it's like he's kind of giving her shade for not knowing how to drive a stick shift. He's insisting on leading her in any given situation. So I think that was, and she's generally weaker than James Bond. Like in modern films, when you have a female that's actually fighting alongside Bond, they really do hold their own in a physical fight,
Right.
and or shooting or something like that. But she was, well, one problem was she really didn't get a chance to fight against a slightly equal opponent, like slightly greater or slightly weaker than her own self. So she really didn't get to prove herself. Like her one big fight was against, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, Jaws on the train.
Right. Her one big fight was with Jaws, and nobody can fight Jaws, right? Not even James Bond can fight. He kind of got lucky, and that's the only way you're gonna get. You can either like kind of outthink him a little bit, like when he was fighting Jaws in Egypt, and basically trick Jaws into hitting that weak support that he had spotted that Jaws didn't, causing the building to collapse on him. Or when they're fighting on the train, he basically was able to get into position to kick Jaws out the window. That's basically lucky. That's basic luck. Or he was lucky when he went to a room and he found an electromagnet, right? That was luck. Like an electromagnet did not have to be there, right? So
true. That's true.
James Bond, that's the only way. And it's and Anya was never in a position where she could be lucky. Like she's in close quarters. His hands are already wrapped around her neck. No, she did have this one fight with this one guy. So I guess, but I felt like it was like earlier in the film. I think she had a fight with somebody. I can't remember, or I might be mixing stuff up.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I'm thinking about James Bond. James Bond was fighting this dude, not Anya.
Yeah.
So because I was thinking about when I think the dude was hugging James. That's what I remember. The dude was hugging James, and James was trying to choke him, and then James won choking the dude. That's the dude that he knocked off the building. But yeah, that she really didn't get a chance to shine, and in that's the script writing, and the script writing in general was sexist. Not a lot of women script writers in the James Bond writing room, I don't think. So finally we have. So I agree with him up to a point. I mean, but it's I don't like that he says like, well, they had gaudy fashion. It was like, well, it was fashionable at the time. Like somebody's gonna look 20 years from now and look at what you're wearing, and it's like, man, you dress like a chump, right? So quit gritting on how people dress back in the day. That ain't right. That's rude, actually. So, but I don't like it when people talk about they didn't like the special effects. You're judging it from today. Like, how are you gonna?
What's there to not like? It has great special effects.
Yeah,
I don't know what he's talking about.
Right, it had great special effects. And another thing that people don't take into account is like they're watching, because I can tell by basically that he's saying that it's hideously dated, is that he's judging it from like either to this year or maybe a few years back. So this is a recent review. So you're watching it on a high definition television. No special effects from 10 years ago, even 10 years ago, it's going to hold up against a high definition television. You're going to see wires that people are hanging from. You're going to see stunt people hiding away. You're going to see all sorts of stuff. You're going to see some of the stuff behind the scenes when you're looking at it on you're going to see the makeup, all the lines on the makeup or something, So I think it's unfair to judge the special effects or the fashion or the maybe the sexism. I'll agree with him on that. And the carry on style, that's just how James Bond does. It's like he's all right. And that's just that character. So, and then finally, our last review is Kalichi. Okay, I should have practiced this name out loud, I feel. So this is my first attempt. Enula. Oh, okay. Enulo. I think that could be it. So Kalichi Enulo, from Confessions from a Geek Mind. She wrote, "The Spy Who Loved Me represents a newfound energy for the franchise that was struggling for definition in the new decade. With amazing stunts and iconic moments, it's hard not to love this film." That is exactly right.
Yeah.
I think she gets it.
Totally. Especially the comment about the new decade is interesting because the movies preceding this were kind of a couple movies back with Diamonds Are Forever, which is like the worst Bond film. It's truly horrible. And then like Live and Let Die, which is like the second worst Bond film. And then The Man with the Golden Gun, which is pretty good. It's about average. It's like middle of the pack for Bond. So definitely had a couple of, right before that, had a couple of like really, really bad movies. Right. So yeah, totally agree. The Man with the Golden Gun is pretty good. And The Spy Who Loved Me is just such a standout for the entire series.
Right. So finally, The Spy Who Loved Me is, as of this recording, available for rent or purchase from your favorite streaming platform. Next week movie is to be determined. You follow us on Twitter at Backlook Cinema or on Facebook or Instagram at Backlook Cinema Podcast for updates on next week's movie. For our special guests, you heard their for our special guests for next week, you heard the ads that got played earlier, and they're currently featured on our show. The ladies of the Book of Lies podcast, Brandy Fleeks and Sunny Hepburn, will be right here next week. Don't forget, you can contact us with any questions, comments, or suggestions at fanmail@backlookcinema.com. So do you have any additional plugs that you want to put out there before we go?
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and mention where you can find me. I talk about movies, or I review movies just kind of for fun on Letterboxd. My Letterboxd profile is Griffins. It says letterboxd.com/GRYFFIN. And then I have a couple of websites where I write about video games. 9thgen.com, as in the 9th generation of video games, is a news site about cloud gaming. And then invisible.studio.blogspot.com is like a game design website.
Awesomeness. So one last time, if you like this show, then please help us grow. You can do this by subscribing to the show. You can rate us, or you can write a review on Spotify, podchaser.com, or Apple Podcasts, or your favorite podcast app. And if you've enjoyed our guests, then please listen to Press A podcast, where Finn Haverkamp, he and his twin brother, talk about video games from a unique perspective. Now, I've asked you politely to follow us and to rate the show and to review the show. I asked you nicely. Believe me, it matters. So be safe. Share a movie from yesteryear with your family. Hug your loved ones and be outstanding.